Here's a crazy fact. The richest wife in the Philippines has more money than most billionaire CEOs, and she's been multiplying her wealth over time. Welcome to the world of the country's most powerful women, where influence meets legacy and every decision can shake the stock market. Stick till the end, because the woman sitting at number 1 is so rich that she makes even some tycoons look like side characters. Number 10. Susan Koh, the grocery queen who outsmarted a crisis. Let's kick things off with a retail visionary who proved that building an empire doesn't always start in a boardroom. Sometimes it begins in the grocery aisle. Now, if you've ever wheeled a cart through a Puregold store and thought, wow, this place has literally everything I need, that's Susan Koh's doing in 1998, when most businesses were downsizing in the midst of the Asian financial crisis. Susan and her husband Lucio Koh shocked everyone by doing the opposite. The couple doubled down on optimism, betting on the Filipino middle class that it would survive any storm because no matter how bad things got, families would still need rice, canned goods, and a bottle or two of cooking oil. And they were right. What began as a single hypermarket in Quezon City exploded into a retail juggernaut with over 640 stores nationwide, making Puregold the second-largest grocery chain in the Philippines. But Susan's real stroke of genius wasn't just scale. It was empathy. She understood that the sari-sari store owners, the heartbeat of Filipino communities, didn't need competition. They needed partnership. So she built Tindahan ni Aling Puring, a loyalty and wholesale program that transformed thousands of tiny neighborhood stores into business allies. It was a revolutionary move that turned Puregold into a lifeline for the everyday entrepreneur, allowing small shop owners to buy in bulk, earn points, and grow alongside the empire. And that was just the grocery front. Behind the shelves, the Koh family diversified like master strategists. Their holding company, Costco Capital, quietly dominates multiple industries, from liquor distribution to Liquigas, one of the country's leading LPG providers. They even branched into real estate, merging fuel, food, and daily living into one massive interconnected business web that practically powers the Filipino household from kitchen to corner store. And while Susan Koh keeps the country's shelves stocked, let's shift gears to a woman whose creations don't just fuel industries, they feed an entire nation. Number 9. Betty Yang, the queen of instant noodles. Let's put a little tastefulness to our list because Betty Yang built her fortune not from cracking finance or real estate, but from instant noodles. As the co-founder and president of Monde Nissin Corporation, Betty turned humble pantry staples into a billion-dollar empire. Back in 1989, she and her husband, Huediono Quifanus, launched a brand called Lucky Me. And that was it. History was cooked, served, and slurped in millions of Filipino homes. What started as an affordable comfort food became a cultural phenomenon. Lucky Me now commands over 70% of the instant noodle market, and Monde Nissin's portfolio has expanded to include Skyflakes, Fita, and Mamacitas, basically the holy trinity of Filipino snack time. But Betty didn't stop there. In 2015, she made one of the boldest moves in Philippine business history, acquiring Quorn Foods, a UK-based plant protein giant, for £550 million. That single deal transformed Monde Nissin from a local favorite into a global food tech leader, putting her in the same conversation as Nestlé and Unilever. What makes Betty particularly remarkable isn't just her success, it's her silence. She's never given a full-length media interview, even after leading the largest ever food IPO in Philippine history, worth nearly $1 billion. Yet her brand is so ingrained in the national psyche that it's practically folklore. Ask any Filipino college student, and they'll tell you how they survived midterms on nothing but Lucky Me, pancit canton, and sheer willpower. And from noodles that shaped a nation's appetite, we move to our next rich wife, who runs a multinational conglomerate so diversified that it holds the entire nation running, from the tollways you drive on to the lights in your living room. Number 8. Soledad Gretchen, Opencojuangco, the quiet heiress of San Miguel. Now, if you've ever cracked open a bottle of San Miguel beer or driven on a tollway built by SMC, you've brushed shoulders with Soledad Cojuangco, who's one of the Philippines' most discreet billionaires and arguably its most powerful widow. But here's where her story takes an interesting turn. Soledad's late husband, Eduardo Danding Cojuangco Jr., was no ordinary businessman. He was a titan, part politician, part industrialist, and part myth. His life was a tangled web of empire building and controversy, from the Coco Levy Fund saga to the takeover of San Miguel Corporation, a company that went from brewing beer to building airports. But after his passing in 2020, Soledad became the Cojuangco family's matriarch, the steady hand behind a 1.5 trillion peso empire that touches nearly every Filipino life: food, fuel, power, tollways. If it moves, lights up, or fills your fridge, San Miguel likely has a stake in it. What makes Soledad fascinating is how unlike her late husband she is. Danding was flamboyant, a Marcos ally with political ambitions and an entourage to match Soledad, meanwhile rarely steps into the spotlight. No interviews, no events, not even a soundbite. Yet through her quiet authority, the Cojuangco influence remains unbroken. And while other conglomerates trim down, SMC keeps expanding, from owning Petron to constructing the new Manila International Airport, a $15 billion mega-project that could reshape the country's infrastructure for decades. In short, Gretchen Cojuangco doesn't need to shout to be heard. Her empire speaks louder than any press release could. And speaking of empires that define everyday life, our next entry is a woman who has shaped the Filipino cities, quite literally building the country's suburbs from the ground up. Number 7. Josephine Gotianon Yap, the real estate empress. If the Philippines had a monopoly board, half the tiles would probably belong to Josephine Gotianon Yap. As chairperson of Philinvest Development Corporation, she inherited her late parents' vision, but took it to the next level. Together with her husband, the late Andrew Gotianon, she built an empire spanning real estate, banking, energy, and hospitality, worth billions in assets. Philinvest City in Alabang, Festival Mall, Crimson Hotels, all carry her imprint. Under Josephine's leadership, the company expanded into Philinvest Land, which built over 200 residential projects across the country, and East West Bank, one of the country's top universal banks. She's known as a meticulous decision-maker, blending engineering precision with boardroom poise. Her Ayala Alabang mansion, valued at over 500 million pesos, serves as her base, but she's often spotted jetting off to company projects aboard a Gulfstream G450 or relaxing in her Balasan villa, surrounded by fellow tycoons. Style-wise, she's the embodiment of quiet luxury. Max Mara suits, Escada silk blouses, and a Cartier watch that's seen more board meetings than most executives. Beyond business, she's a leading advocate for affordable housing, directing billions of pesos in corporate social responsibility toward community-building initiatives through the Philinvest Foundation. And while Josephine builds the skylines we see, the next rich wife on our list built the invisible network that keeps those skylines connected. Number 6. Maria Grace Uy, the digital dynamo. In a country notorious for slow internet, Maria Grace Uy decided she'd had enough, and then went on to build the broadband empire that changed everything. Together with her husband Dennis Anthony Uy, she co-founded Converge ICT Solutions in 2007, long before fiber became a household word. Their origin story sounds like a garage startup legend. The two were running a small cable TV business in Pampanga, selling Betamax tapes on the side, when they spotted a gap in the market. Everyone was hungry for speed, but the big telcos weren't delivering, so they decided to do it themselves. Fast forward to today, Converge has grown into one of the Philippines' top broadband providers, a network of over 800,000 kilometers of fiber, connecting 17 million homes nationwide. Their 2020 IPO raised $500 million, the largest tech IPO in Philippine history, and instantly turned the couple into one of the nation's richest power duos. Maria Grace, who serves as President and Chief Resources Officer, is often described as the brains that keep the machine running. She's meticulous, data-driven, and famously demanding, the kind of leader who knows the numbers down to the decimal. Her focus: speed, reliability, and scale. And unlike many dynasties on this list, the Uys are entirely self-made. No inheritance, no family fortune, just sheer grit, vision, and sleepless nights wiring up a dream. In under 2 decades, Converge has forced telecom giants like PLDT and Globe to evolve or risk becoming obsolete. Analysts have even compared its growth curve to Netflix in its early days: lean, aggressive, and unstoppable. And now, from one woman who connected the nation, we move to another who healed it. A legend whose legacy lives on in every pharmacy across the Philippines. Number 5. Vivian Quay Azcona, the matriarch behind Mercury Drug. Every Filipino has walked into a Mercury Drug at some point, whether for medicine, baby formula, or late-night vitamins. And behind that glowing red and white sign stood one woman, Vivian Quay Azcona. When Vivian's father, Mariano Quay, opened a small drugstore in post-war Manila in 1945, he probably didn't imagine his daughter would one day become one of the richest women in the Philippines. But Vivian made sure her father's legacy scaled from a single pharmacy to a nationwide chain of over 1,000 stores, dominating the pharmaceutical retail space for over 7 decades. Mercury Drug's estimated annual revenue now exceeds 100 billion pesos, and its name is as recognizable as the flag itself. Vivian, whose estimated fortune sits around $1.7 billion, took charge quietly but decisively, automating systems, expanding the distribution network, and ensuring every Filipino province had access to affordable medicine. But if you think doing all this was just a piece of cake for her, well, you're in for a surprise. Vivian joined the company in 1977 as a young assistant and worked her way through every rung of the ladder, learning logistics, accounting, and store operations before eventually taking over as president. By the time she did, Mercury Drug had grown into an empire of over 1,200 branches nationwide, the largest and most trusted pharmacy chain in the country. Her genius was operational. Vivian revolutionized how Filipinos accessed healthcare. She pioneered 24-hour pharmacy service, launched the Suki loyalty program, and introduced Gamot Padala, a delivery service that allowed families to send medicine anywhere in the country. In short, she made access to healthcare not just convenient, but personal. For decades, surveys have ranked Mercury Drug among the country's most trusted brands, sometimes even above government agencies. That level of credibility doesn't come from advertising, it comes from service. When Vivian passed away in April 2025, tributes poured in from across the nation, not from fellow billionaires, but from ordinary Filipinos. She wasn't just a CEO. She was the woman who made sure no one had to walk far for medicine, no matter who they were. Next up is a retail royalty that has redefined the entrepreneurship practices in the Philippines by building a billion-dollar empire. Number 4. Robina Gokongwei Pei, Philippines retail royalty. And now this is a woman whose family name is stamped on half the shopping bags in the country. Every time you've popped into a Robinsons supermarket, grabbed medicine from South Star Drug, or browsed at Ministop, a part of your peso ended up in Robina Gokongwei Pei's pocket. As the president and CEO of Robinsons Retail Holdings, Robina oversees a massive consumer empire of over 2,000 stores nationwide, a retail web so wide it touches nearly every Filipino household. Born into the legendary Gokongwei dynasty, Robina grew up watching her late father, John Gokongwei Jr., build JG Summit from scratch. But she's no passive heir. With an estimated net worth of around $1.9 billion, Robina is the modern face of old money, sharp, strategic, and allergic to corporate complacency. Known for her hands-on management style, she's the type to walk into a supermarket unannounced just to check shelf displays or chat with cashiers about customer feedback. Her leadership blends data-driven precision with a grounded understanding of how everyday Filipinos shop. Beyond the boardroom, her lifestyle strikes a delicate balance between elegance and restraint. Her Dasmariñas village mansion, valued at over 700 million pesos, is said to house a private art collection rivaling local museums, while her Tagaytay villa serves as a weekend sanctuary away from Manila's buzz. She moves between cities in a Bombardier Global jet, always understated in Chanel suits, Valentino pumps, and Bulgari jewelry. Quiet power with impeccable polish. But perhaps her most defining trait is purpose. Through the Gokongwei Brothers Foundation, Robina funds educational and entrepreneurship initiatives that empower future innovators, a nod to her father's vision of inclusive growth. But if Robina is the powerful retail royalty, the next woman in our list built the places where the nation comes together, where deals are struck, memories are made, and global icons check in. Number 3. Elizabeth Betty Sy, the SM heiress of style. Luxury, hospitality, and the art of making people feel at home. That's Elizabeth Sy's empire summed up. As the daughter of the late retail giant Henry Sy Sr., Betty didn't just inherit money, she inherited the blueprint of modern Filipino life. But instead of just following her family's retail path, which was certainly the easier way, she chose to chart her own, one rooted in elegance and experience. Through SM Investments Corporation, she sits on the board of a conglomerate that runs half the country's shopping, banking, and real estate worlds. From SM Supermalls to BDO Unibank, all the way to the 5-star Tal Vista Hotel. That's a portfolio so massive it basically defines where the Philippines shops, saves, and stays. But unlike her brothers who dominate headlines with billion-peso expansions, Betty's empire moves quietly, wrapped in silk, pearls, and perfect timing. Her 700 million pesos. Dasmariñas estate could pass for a museum, complete with marble floors, a private jewelry gallery, and whispers of old money calm. When she's not hosting charity dinners for the SM Foundation, she's hopping between Hong Kong and Paris in her Bombardier Challenger jet, dressed head to toe in Chanel tweed and Cartier diamonds, because of course she is. And yet, beneath the couture is a woman who keeps giving back. Funding scholarships, hospitals, and community centers across the country. Betty Sy may have inherited malls, but she built meaning into the marble. But if you think that's impressive, let's look at how the next woman transformed the nation's thinking. From a humble bookstore to a billion-peso empire, she turned pages into power. Number 2. Socorro Ramos, the bookstore billionaire matriarch. Long before billionaire became a buzzword, there was a woman who built one of the most beloved institutions in the Philippines, the National Bookstore. But who was that woman? Let's rewind to the Manila of the 1940s. A young woman, Socorro Ramos, stands behind a modest 6x15 meter stand on Escolta Street, selling rented textbooks, notebooks, and flip-flops when the Japanese occupation shuts down American book imports. Her store burns down in the Battle of Manila. She rebuilds. A typhoon hits. She rebuilds again. Out of that grit rises what today is the chain known as National Bookstore, the Philippines' largest bookstore empire. Fast forward decades. Her net worth is harder to pin down with exact precision. Some sources claim around $3.1 billion US, though those numbers vary widely. But what's beyond debate is how she transformed literacy access into legacy wealth. The brand now spans hundreds of branches nationwide, with thousands of employees. What makes her wealth fascinating isn't just the scale, it's the soul. Her empire thrived not on flashy products, but on understanding the Filipino psyche. Every pen, paper, and book became a symbol of progress. While others chased profit margins, she quietly built cultural capital. Students, teachers, and dreamers, generations grew up with her brand stitched into their story. At over 100 years old, her legacy remains unshakable. She's passed the reins to her grandchildren, who've modernized the business into publishing, e-commerce, and school supply exports. Yet Socorro still embodies the company's spirit, humble, disciplined, and sharp as ever. Her Forbes Park home may not scream excess, but her name commands the same respect as the Sy or Gokongwei dynasties. She's been honored with numerous Lifetime Achievement Awards, but her truest wealth is in how she democratized education, funding literacy programs, scholarships, and reading initiatives nationwide. Socorro Ramos didn't just sell books, she sold possibility. And while her fortune was built one receipt at a time, the woman sitting at the very top built malls, banks, and a legacy so massive it practically runs the country's economy. Number 1. Teresita Sy Coson, the queen of Philippine capitalism. If the Philippines had a big boss of business, it would undoubtedly be Teresita Sy Coson. the woman who quietly runs an empire so vast its influence stretches from the shopping cart to the stock market. Born the eldest daughter of Henry VI Sr., Teresita, or Tessie as she's known, grew up folding shoes at her father's original shoe mart store. That early exposure to the grind shaped her into one of the most formidable business minds in Asia. Today, she serves as vice chairperson of SM Investments Corporation, the crown jewel of Philippine corporate power. Under her leadership, SMIC's three pillars, retail, real estate, and banking, have not just dominated, but defined the national economy. SM malls are now part of Filipino life, BDO Unibank is the largest bank in the country, and SM Prime Holdings is one of the most valuable property firms in Southeast Asia. The SM Group's combined market cap now exceeds 3 trillion pesos, $50 billion, representing a staggering 10% of the Philippine Stock Exchange Index. Tessie's crowning achievement? Transforming BDO from a mid-sized thrift bank into the undisputed leader of Philippine banking. Through calculated mergers, extended branch hours, and customer-first innovations, she redefined what banking could mean for everyday Filipinos. The slogan, "We find ways," wasn't just marketing, it was her playbook. Despite her empire's reach, Tessie remains famously pragmatic, modestly dressed, understated, but deadly precise in boardroom strategy. Forbes and Fortune have repeatedly listed her among the world's most powerful women, not for headlines, but for hard numbers. Today, BDO serves over 50 million customers, nearly half the nation. Her family's businesses employ hundreds of thousands and influence virtually every major sector. Teresita Sicoson doesn't just top the list because of wealth. She tops it because she is the benchmark. In a country where money moves with her decisions, she stands as the axis around which Philippine capitalism spins. And there you have it, the 10 richest Filipino wives. Which one of these wealthy females fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments, and for more such peeks into the lives of the rich, take a look at our channel.